This happened about 10 years ago when I was 22. I'm an avid hiker and was attempting a multi-day solo trip deep in the Siuslaw National Forest in Oregon. I was miles from any cell service, following old, overgrown logging roads that were barely passable even in my 4x4. I had set up camp near a creek and was rationing my water when I realized I was running low. My only option was to hike back to the main logging road, drive for a half hour, and reach the nearest reliable spring I'd marked on my map. It was late afternoon, maybe 4:30 p.m. The sunlight was thick and golden, filtering down through the canopy, but the road itself was already shadowy. It was dead quiet. The kind of quiet you only get deep in the woods, where your own heartbeat feels too loud. No birds, no wind, nothing. I was driving slowly, creeping around a blind bend, when I saw him. He was standing right in the middle of the road, facing away from me. He was tall, thin, and dressed in heavy, dark work clothes, a thick, almost military green jacket and dark pants, even though it wasn't that cold. He wasn't waving for help. He was just standing there, perfectly still. I stopped my truck maybe 50 feet away. It's unusual to see anyone this deep, let alone someone alone and unmoving. I rolled down my passenger window and called out, "Hey, you all right?" He didn't turn around. He didn't even twitch. It was like calling out to a statue. I put the truck in park. "Do you need a ride?" "Water." Finally, very slowly, he turned his head just enough to look over his left shoulder, toward me. The movement was unnaturally smooth, like his neck was powered by an invisible hydraulic lift. This is where the story gets difficult to explain. My mind didn't process what I was seeing until after I had driven away. When he looked at me, I expected to see a tired hiker, maybe a lost logger. Instead, his entire head and face were shaded by the brim of an old, dark baseball cap. The shadow was so complete, so dark, it looked like a black hole where his features should have been. He didn't make eye contact. He just focused on my truck's headlight, which was positioned higher than his head. Then he spoke. His voice was a flat, dry monotone. It was low, but somehow perfectly clear in the silent woods. "Got a cigarette?" I was a non-smoker, but I immediately realized this was a request, not a plea. And that was the moment the primal alarm bells went off. I stammered, "And no, I don't smoke, man. Sorry." He didn't react. The shadow mask of his face remained fixed on the light. I watched his body language, and this is the creepiest detail. He was standing in a stance that was subtly wrong. His shoulders were too broad, his arms were hanging too long, and his knees seemed to be locked straight, creating a weird, tense posture. He looked less like a human standing still, and more like a human imitating standing still. My instincts screamed to leave. I put the truck in drive, didn't bother reversing, and just sped right around him, gravel spraying. As I passed him, I couldn't help but glance back in my side mirror. He hadn't moved. He was still in the middle of the road, looking over his shoulder, watching my taillights disappear. The shadow was still absolute, but as I drove faster and the sun angle changed, the shadow briefly lifted from his face, and for a fleeting second, I saw what was underneath. It wasn't a face that was scarred or injured or even pale. It was smooth. It was completely devoid of features. No eyes, no nose, no lips. Just a stretched, waxy, and utterly featureless expanse of skin where his face should have been, the shadow brim of the hat completing the monstrous illusion. The dark, perfectly shaped hole I thought was shadow was his face. I drove the rest of the way to the spring in a blind panic, filled my water, and drove straight out of the forest, all the way home, leaving my entire campsite behind. I never told the police. They'd just think I hallucinated or saw a strange drifter. But I looked up missing persons reports for that area, and there were several documented cases of people disappearing on those logging roads. I go back to the woods now, but I never go alone, and I never go that deep. The image of that perfectly motionless figure, standing in the middle of the road, asking a question with a voice that came from nowhere, is something I will take to my grave. It felt like I encountered something that was wearing a person, and the outfit was just a little too big.